The year is 1470. Before dawn breaks over the Thessalian mountains, a bell rings for the last time. Stone walls sweat with cold, incense hangs heavy, and 23 women kneel shoulder to shoulder, lips moving in prayers learned before fear had a name. Outside, banners stain the horizon red. Not sunrise, but an empire arriving without haste. The Ottoman host does not march, it pours, thousands upon thousands, iron, leather, and cannon, a river that has already swallowed cities and forgotten their names. Inside the convent of St. Catherine, Sister Eleni grips a silver crucifix worn smooth by generations. Her hands tremble from age, not terror. She knows what comes next. They all do. Death would be mercy. What waits beyond these walls is quieter, cleaner, and designed to leave no martyrs behind. This is how identities are erased, not with screams, but with ledgers. 17 years earlier, Constantinople fell. 53 days of thunder tore 1,000 years of certainty apart. Crosses vanished, bells were melted, mosaics buried under plaster, and hymns were replaced by a call that echoed from the same domes. Sultan Mehmet understood conquest as psychology. Kill bodies and you sow legends, break memory and you rule forever. Every monastery still standing was a wound that refused to close. St. Catherine stood alone on a hillside, beyond garrisons and allies, sustained by silence and habit. These women were not soldiers, their weapons were rosaries, their armor routine. Sister Magdalena was 19, hands still calloused from a farm that no longer existed. Sister Theodoros was 70, older than emperors she had watched die. Each morning had been the same, each night ended with the same promise, until this one. The first cannon fires just after sunrise. It does not strike the chapel, it takes the bell tower. Iron screams, stone blooms into dust, and the bell shatters mid-swing, raining fragments into the herb garden. No one runs. Eleni lifts the crucifix and sings, Kyrie eleison. One voice, then many, 23 against an empire that does not listen. By noon the gates give way. Soldiers enter without blades, carrying ink, quills, and rope. They count, record, and translate mercy into options. Convert and live, refuse and disappear. Eleni steps forward. We already belong to a king. The officer smiles, because patience is their sharpest weapon. History watches silently, waiting to see which truth survives tonight.
Night falls heavy and airless inside the chapel. The doors are sealed from the outside, iron sliding into stone with a finality that settles in the chest. No lamps, no candles, only breath and the faint smell of dust and old incense. Outside the camp lives. Fires crackle, meat roasts, laughter drifts through the walls in careless bursts. Inside, 23 women sit on cold stone, backs straight, hands folded, waiting for hunger to introduce itself. It comes slowly, first as a tightening, then as a hollow ache that sharpens with every hour. Throats dry, tongues swell. 2 of the youngest sisters weep quietly, faces pressed to their knees, the sound of it echoing like water in a cave. Sister Magdalena lifts her head and begins to whisper a psalm, each word measured, deliberate. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The words move from mouth to mouth until the sobbing fades. This is familiar ground for them. Fasting, silence, discipline. What the Ottomans intend as pressure feels at first like ritual. Hassan Pasha knows better. He waits. On the second day, the doors open. Bread is set down. Water, clean and cool, sweating in clay jars. It is left there like an offering. The smell alone makes knees weaken. Eyes turn to Eleni. She does not hesitate. They want gratitude. They want the first fracture. Then we fast. No one touches it. Outside, Hassan watches, arms folded, irritation cutting through his composure. Faith, he once wrote, burns brightest before it dies. By the third day, lips split, hands shake. Sister Theodoros can no longer rise without help, but still no one breaks. That morning, Hassan enters himself. He speaks calmly, almost kindly, through a translator whose voice trembles with shame. You are not enemies. You are mistaken. New names, new lives, protection. Or Constantinople, where the Sultan will hear you himself. He lets the promise hang. The road is long. The weak do not survive it. Eleni looks at her sisters. Some pray, some stare into stone, searching for strength buried deep. We will walk. Hassan smiles, not cruelly, but with certainty. Good. At dawn. That night they huddle together. No speeches, no tears. Magdalena hums a hymn so softly it feels like breathing. One by one they join. Outside, soldiers pause. One turns away. Years later, he will try to remember the sound, and fail. Dawn brings rope. 23 women step into the light, hands bound, feet bare, beginning a journey designed not to kill quickly, but to teach.
The road waits, endless and patient, ready to count who remains. The road south is pale with dust and unforgiving underfoot, a ribbon of sun that offers no shade and no mercy. The soldiers set a steady pace, not fast, not slow, the rhythm of men who know time itself is an accomplice. By midday, the heat presses down like a weight on the lungs. Sweat dries almost as quickly as it forms. The ropes chafe skin raw. No one speaks. Words cost energy, and energy is already running out. On the second day, Sister Irene stumbles. She is 62, her knees worn thin by years of kneeling on stone. She tries to rise, teeth clenched, dignity fighting gravity, but her legs refuse her. A guard tugs the rope. She collapses again. There is no anger in it, only procedure. Magdalena and Sister Anna stepped forward without asking. They lift Irene between them, her weight light and terrible at once, and they walk. 3 miles pass like a lifetime. When they stop at dusk, Irene is unconscious, breath shallow and uneven. At dawn, she does not wake. They dig with their hands, fingers bleeding, soil packed down over a body that has already gone somewhere beyond empire. No priest, no bell, just whispered words and the sound of pages turning in a ledger. 22. The road teaches quickly. On the 4th day, Sister Callista sits down and does not rise. She closes her eyes as if resting and lets the sun take her. No burial this time. The column moves on. By the time the sea appears on the horizon, a hard blue line promising nothing kind, 18 remain. Something has changed in them. The weeping stopped days ago. Even the prayers have thinned into silence. Not defeat, decision. On the 7th morning, Hassan calls for Eleni. She is led into his tent alone. What happens there is absent from Ottoman records, but a Venetian merchant will later write of the dawn. She is returned dressed in silk, unable to walk, eyes open and empty, paraded as proof of conversion. But as the merchant passes, he hears lips moving without sound. Latin prayers whispered to no one but God. They have her body. They do not have her. The younger sisters break at the sight. The older ones pray harder. Eleni walks with them the rest of the way, silent, present, unreachable. At the port of Volos, chains replace rope. A galley waits, built for obedience. Names vanish, replaced by numbers. Religious captives, female, 18. Purpose, service. As the ship pulls away, Thessaly fades into memory.
Salt stings cracked skin. Storms rise without warning. In the dark, Magdalena whispers psalms. Other prisoners listen. For a moment, even the sea seems to hold its breath. Ahead, Constantinople waits, a city of domes and shadows, ready to finish what the road began. The Bosphorus opens before them at dawn, a blade of water cutting through stone and history alike. Constantinople rises from the mist, domes and minarets piercing the pale sky, walls stretching so far the eye cannot follow them to an end. For centuries it was called the city of the world's desire. Now it watches in silence as the galley slides into its harbor, chains rattling in rhythm with the oars. They are marched through streets still damp from morning washings. Merchants pause, slaves avert their eyes. A line of Christian nuns among the captives draws murmurs, quick glances, then studied indifference. In an empire built on absorption, even this must become ordinary. Near the great church that is no longer a church, they are forced to kneel. The call to prayer pours from the towers that once held bells. One sister whispers that they are home, and the word tastes like grief. They descend beneath the palace through spiraling stone steps that swallow light. The air grows cold, wet with the smell of earth. Here, beneath Topkapi, the world forgets itself. By day they scrub floors, carry water, tend fires for rooms they will never enter. They move like shadows, silent, interchangeable, carefully unremarkable. At night, when the palace sleeps, they gather in a forgotten chamber sealed behind a false wall. There is no altar, no book, no priest. Memory becomes scripture. Psalms half remembered are stitched together into new prayers. Bread stolen from kitchens becomes communion. A scrap of linen stands in for holiness. In the dark, they scratch crosses into stone with broken pottery, with fingernails, with anything that can leave a mark. Lux in tenebris lucet. The light shines in the darkness. Each letter costs effort. Each line is an act of refusal. Magdalena becomes their voice, her whispers carrying what strength remains. Eleni is there, body present, eyes distant, lips still moving in prayers no one else can hear. One by one, lines stop appearing beside some crosses. Faces vanish from the circle. Ottoman records will later note a cleansing of staff. No names, no graves, just disposed. Years pass, or perhaps months. Time behaves differently underground.
A Venetian prisoner will write of hearing women singing in Latin beneath the palace, dismissed as superstition for centuries. When restorers break the wall in 2011, they will find the room intact. Wax from handmade candles, herbs mixed into soot, a bird scratched beside 23 lines, only 11 complete. Beneath it, 2 words in Greek, "We endure." Empires measure victory in territory and silence. These women measure it in scratches on stone, in prayers spoken where no one was meant to hear them. The Ottomans will last 600 years, their ledgers will crumble, but this room will wait, patient, for someone to listen. The scratches on the wall grow deeper toward the end, uneven, desperate, carved with more force than care. Whoever held the shard of pottery no longer worried about neatness, only about being heard. The crosses multiply, then stop. Silence presses in again, thicker than before. Somewhere above, sultans change, decrees are signed, wars ignite and fade. Down here, removal comes quietly. Ottoman records from 1482 mention a purge of palace servants under the new ruler. Unproductive, resistant. The word is clean, it leaves no blood on the page. One night, the women are not allowed to return to the chamber. The false wall remains sealed. The room goes dark for the last time. No witness records what happens next. No execution orders survive. Only absence. Centuries later, rumors cling to the lower halls. Servants whisper of cold air, of voices singing in a language that does not belong here. A French diplomat in 1712 dismisses it as superstition, the fears of ignorant workers. He writes it down anyway. Even denial becomes a form of record. When the Ottoman Empire finally collapses in 1922, its symbols scatter. Sultans become history. Palaces become museums. Tourists walk polished floors unaware of what lies beneath them. It takes until 2011 for a restoration crew to break through a false wall and find the chamber. Crosses, wax, scratches. Words that should not have survived. Lux in tenebris lucet. Archaeologists stand in silence, realizing they are not the first to listen here. Someone asks how long they kept the vigil. The wax suggests years. The depth of the carving suggests repetition, night after night, refusing to stop even as numbers dwindled. Faith does not flicker out all at once. It erodes, then hardens. The bird scratched into the corner is last. Beside it, 23 lines, unfinished. Each line, a name without letters.
Each absence a life. These women did not win in any way, empires understand. They did not reclaim land or topple power. They endured long enough to leave proof. The Ottomans mastered erasure. No martyrs, no songs, only ghosts. But ghosts leave impressions. Stone remembers pressure. Walls remember hands. 500 years later, the empire is gone, but the marks remain. Power fails when it assumes silence means victory. This is not a story about religion alone. It is about what happens when identity is treated as a threat, about how people resist when resistance is stripped of weapons, of speech, of witnesses. Sometimes defiance looks like a prayer whispered into stone, trusting that someone, someday, will hear it. The truth settles slowly when you step back from the chamber and let the silence speak. Empires rise believing time belongs to them. They count victories in borders redrawn and enemies erased from record. The Ottomans ruled 3 continents for 6 centuries. Their armies broke cities. Their laws reshaped lives. They believed disappearance was final. But history is patient, and stone remembers what paper forgets. Those women were meant to vanish, converted, broken, disposed of without spectacle. No saints, no uprisings, just compliance. That was the calculation. And for centuries, it worked. Their convent became rebel. Their names faded. Even their suffering was denied the dignity of memory, until a wall cracked and light returned to a room that had been sealed for 500 years. What remains is not tragedy alone. It is accusation against every power that believes control equals victory, against every system that thinks silence means consent. The scratches on that wall are not relics. They are messages sent forward in time, written by hands that knew they would not be saved, but wrote anyway. Think of what it took to carve those crosses. Fingernails torn, fingers bleeding, bodies exhausted from labor and hunger, sisters disappearing one by one, never returning to the circle. And still, someone came back to that wall and pressed harder, not because it would change their fate, but because it would outlive it. That is not weakness. That is the most dangerous form of resistance there is. The Ottoman Empire collapsed in 1922. Its decrees hold no power now. Its ledgers gather dust. But looks into Nabry's lucid is still there, faint but legible. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.
That sentence survived cannons, chains, and centuries. It outlived sultans. This story is not preserved because it was loud. It survived because it was stubborn, because someone believed memory itself was worth suffering for. That belief crossed oceans of time and reached you, not through triumph, but through endurance. History is written by victors, but memory belongs to those who refuse to disappear. Sometimes survival is not escape. Sometimes it is leaving a mark where no one was meant to look. A cross in the dark, a prayer scratched into stone, a bird carved for sisters who never returned. You are hearing this because someone endured long enough to be found, and now the silence they were buried in is broken. That was the one thing empire could not allow, and the one thing it could not prevent. The bell never rang again in Thessaly. The convent never reopened. But beneath the palace built to glorify power, a quieter victory waited. The light shone. The darkness did not win.